Hello everyone, Milan here, and welcome to this video. So basically, I'm going to do a scenario. What if Disventure Camp All-Stars was a heroes versus villains season? Like, Total Drama All-Stars. The thing is, at first, I thought it was going to be, because the first 14 who were introduced, it was alternating hero-villain, hero-villain. Hero, villain, hero, villain, sorta, hero, villain, hero, villain, hero, villain, hero, villain, hero, villain. And then the final four stopped that theme. But what if we had the last four fill that theme too? So, obviously out of these options, the best hero to pick would be Miriam, because she got the most spotlight. And the best villain to pick here would probably be Carol, because she rejoined at the merge, so she got some screen time. And it's kind of hard to consider any of the others villains. So then I would have room for one more hero and one more villain. Well, let's just look at this. So, Rosa was definitely the farthest to make it in her season, which could be considered a hero, but they could still have the thing with her not going, so like could be by herself with just Aiden, and she has to be with her daughter, so she's not in the season. Obviously, that means Maggie wouldn't be in it either. Connor made it farther than Kai, so that means if it was from season 2, it would be Connor. Let's look at the others. Will, no. Oh yeah, Allie too, so not Connor. I forgot. I didn't notice her. So out of these, Dan is the one who made it the farthest. But the thing is, I'd also have to have one of those characters to be considered a villain. Jensen's dead and wasn't a competitor. But if he was alive, maybe. I guess Nick, it would be the best choice, because he was working with Alec, Fiore, and Ellie before they dumped him because he was bad. But let's just look at this real quick. With all of these, it's one being introduced from each season. One of them is hero, one is villain. So I think the last two spots would be filled with Allie and Nick. Leaving this with our final cast. Deciding the teams is pretty easy to do. Okay, and here we have our teams. So with the first challenge being the animal one, based on what the challenges were in the actual season, I'll consider that. Since Gabby is on the heroes team would definitely end up winning. So between the villains, let's see. So James... Well, James and Carol would probably be the most likely, because Carol still hates James because of what he did to get her eliminated. And James also doesn't really like Rhea. So I think most likely what would happen is Yo would vote for James, Fiore would vote for Carol, Gret would vote for James, Alec would probably not vote with Fiore because they're still mad at, he's still mad. Ellie votes for Carol, and Nick, I'm assuming after what happened with Gabby getting mad about the animals hurt to make his code or something, he starts to not like animals. So he votes for Carol, but it's still 5-4. James is out. The next challenge would be the underwater one. Originally, the only reason the Cyan team lost is that Miriam lied to them. And I think that most of them wouldn't have a reason to trust her. Like Fiore wouldn't, Ellie wouldn't. And I don't see the other 4, even if they trusted her, making an impact, so the Heroes team loses. I think that it would probably be between Tom and Jake. Lake would be on their side, and since Lake and Gabby both are friends, Lake is friends with Tess, and Tess likes Ellie, who likes Gabby, so they'd be on their side. I think that Hunter would be better at challenges, so based on Hunter logic, he would vote with Hunter, and Allie would too. So that means 7-2 vote, Jake is out. Then the next challenge, let's see. So, if each team started off with their strongest member, let's say the first match would be Tom versus Carol. Tom scores the point. Then Hunter versus Alec. Hunter scores the point. And Gabby versus Rhea. Rhea scores the point. Aiden versus Yul. Yul scores the point. And then the last match, Lake versus Ellie. Ellie scores the point, meaning the hero team is up for elimination. I think this is a pretty easy choice. Miriam's out. Yeah. The next challenge is the triathlon. So, I think realistically, they'd probably have the same thing going on as in the original. The villains were about to win, then Gabby has to run like the wind and is able to pass up Fiore. And that means the villain team loses. I think people like Yul and Gret would want to vote for Fiore, and Nick is still mad at her. And she then asks the others after what happened last time. Carol doesn't want to work with her. And Rhea doesn't like Yul, so it would just be a 4v4. So then it's a tiebreaker between Fiore and Yul. And I think for comedic purposes, they would eliminate Yul here. Okay, the next challenge, the singing contest. With Rhea still on the villains team, I think the same thing would end up happening. And with Yul gone, Gret is mad at Fiore for winning the tiebreaker. And some people are considering voting for Rhea, and all the votes are split between Gret, who is mad and without her main ally, Fiore, who isn't very strong and has made some enemies, and Rhea, who lost the challenge for them, and Gret ends up receiving the most votes. Then episode 7, the ball challenge. I think Ellie would probably do the same thing about faking Tom and Aiden trying to kiss each other or something to try to distract the rest of the team, and it works somehow. It like distracts Lake, which distracts Tess, which distracts Gabby, which distracts Ellie, which distracts Hunter or something. So the hero team ends up losing. And I think this one's actually a pretty tough one here, because it really isn't a very easy choice with Jake and Miriam already out and everything. I think since there's no true connection between Tess and Gabby and they just share something mutual, that means the team is divided, and Gabby, Allie, and Hunter vote for Aiden because he's the worst, and the others vote for Hunter because of how competitive he's been getting and how rude he's been to Fiore and other people and everyone else whenever they fail things, even though Fiore's on the other team. So Hunter ends up being voted off. We have no clue what the challenge would be in episode 8, but let's just say that the hero team loses again, and the team decides that Allie really doesn't have anyone, and to mess with Ellie, who's on the other team, they get rid of Gabby. Ellie is thrown off with Gabby being out, and her team ends up losing, and she is able to convince Alec and Fiore to vote with her. Nick is still mad at Fiore. Carol doesn't like that they voted for her, and Rhea doesn't know any of them, but she knows Carol. So it ends up being a tie between Fiore and Nick because he's the worst at challenges. But I think they would actually end up convincing Rhea to vote with them because Fiore and Nick are honestly both terrible at challenges, and Fiore is more strategic. So they decide to boot Nick. 2 more eliminations until the merge. The villains team loses again, and since Rhea voted with them last time, Carol ends up getting booted. Then the hero team loses the last challenge before the merge, and Tess and Allie are friends and don't want to vote each other off, even though Tess was with their alliance and she got jealous of Allie being with Hunter and voted him off previously. She decides to split with the rest of the alliance, and the rest of them consider her a traitor and vote for her, while she tries to convince Aiden to betray his friends to vote for Lake. It doesn't work. And then we get to the merge. These are our contestants who make it to the merge. Let's say the first challenge of the merge, Fiore is able to win. And with the cast currently remaining, Allie is almost definitely the next one eliminated. The next challenge, Tom wins, and he decides 2 people who also get to be safe, and he decides Aiden and Lake for being good friends and teammates with him the entire time, and Rhea ends up being voted off. Aiden would probably end up throwing his vote like he almost always does. At least he did in season 2. So even though they could work together to get rid of the villain trio, I don't think that would end up happening. The next challenge, Ellie wins, and I think it would probably end up being a tiebreaker between Alec and Tom. And because Alec has been growing in this season, Tom gets out here, which Aiden is sad about because first his boyfriend was booted first episode and now his second best friend, but at least he still has Lake. Then the next challenge, Aiden wins and chooses someone else to be safe with him. Obviously, he chooses Lake, and I feel like this is the moment where Alec decides to betray Fiore to kind of get back at what happened in the final 4 of season 1. So that leaves this as our final 4. Next challenge, Ellie wins. It would probably end up being a tiebreaker between Alec and Aiden for continuity purposes or something else. Aiden loses it. So that leaves it to Alec, Lake, and Ellie. And now let's just visualize who everyone is rooting for. Wait, actually. So James would likely root for Lake. And due to Lake's ties with Aiden, who had ties with Tom, Jake probably wouldn't. And he really doesn't like Ellie, so he would root for Alec. Miriam would probably root for Alec too. And Yul would probably root for Alec, I guess. Gret would also. Hunter would root for Lake. Gabby would obviously root for Ellie. Nick roots for Lake because Ellie and Alec had ties to Fiore most of the time. Carol would probably end up rooting for Ellie because she's the most villainous of the remaining and Lake has ties to Aiden. Tess and Allie originally rooted for Rhea because they didn't get to know the others. And with them both with Tess getting out before Merge and Allie getting it out as soon as Merge happened, just like in the original season, I think they would probably end up, actually no, Lake didn't really do much with them, so let's say they rooted for Ellie or something. Rhea, Ellie. Tom would root for Lake. Fiore would be mad at Ellie and Alec and would root for Lake, and Aiden would obviously root for Lake. So, plot twist, who everyone was rooting for was actually to determine who was out first, and since Alec got the least votes, he's out. So that means all the people on Team Alec have to root for someone else. So they would probably rather root for Lake than Ellie if we're considering everything. And for what it's worth, Alec would root for Ellie, so it's even, but whatever. Anyways, for the finale, I think what would happen here, actually, never mind. Lake wins.